was that at that time an undergraduate at Ife, an engineering student, and he had seen my book. He had seen the Rainfather, the small book, and he came looking at what I had written apart from Rainfather, and then he saw this other small one called A Time of Science, and he said, Mr. Ipadeola, you have such a big reputation for being a poet, but are these the only two things you have written? Why is it that you have not written something bigger? That man is seated in this room with us. His name is B. Olusolapwe. You know, a lot of people will get angry if they are accosted by younger people like that. But, you know, it got me thinking that seriously I wanted to write. And I wanted to be taken seriously as a poet. And in 2009, I really began to write the Sahara Testaments. It so happened that, yes, it was my publisher and I who were on an invitation to India, to the Indian Academy of Letters. And the flight that I took was a daytime flight. You had to fly over the Sahara into Dubai, and then from Dubai to Delhi. Now, if you are flying over the Sahara daytime, it's so hot that there is no cloud between your plane and the ground. You can actually see. So I had 5 hours to contemplate the different terrain from here to Dubai. And it just struck me that whereas we have poetry in Arabic, we have poetry in French on the Sahara, we really don't have serious lengthy poems on the Sahara in English. And why shouldn't I be the one to do it? So on that plane, I wrote the first 4 quatrains. And I made up my mind I was going to write 1,000. And I did write 1,000. 1,001. So I called B. Olusolapwe. I said, that thing you insulted me about. I have now done it. So he was the one that edited it. He and another young man called Benson Eluma. And they managed to cut a whole 101 quatrains out of it. Because to them, those ones were rubbish. Those ones didn't quite know well. Anyway, I thought I could now face him and say, yes, they don't call me a poet for nothing.
Yes, so
I actually written something. Yes. But I think a poem is a way to think about your reality. And I think that I made as much discovery about the human beings who have made the Sahara and the sub-Saharan regions their home. And I also made discoveries about Europe, South America, that I did not know before I started writing about it, because the Sahara touches everything. The Sahara touches Western Europe, it touches Eastern Europe, it touches Latin America, it even touches America. So it's a phenomenon that if you really get immersed into it, you can easily write 5 volumes if you are minded to do so.
So we should expect more?
Well, I'm actually targeting the Karoo in South Africa next.
Okay.
Which is another semi-desert. Because now I'm fascinated with the human stories that thrive within those deserts, what we call deserts. It's fascinating. You know that more people actually die of drowning than of thirst in the Sahara. It's counterintuitive, but it's one of those things. Everybody is prepared for the test, but nobody is prepared for the rains inside the Sahara, except, of course, those who live there, who have seen plenty of people drown. So it's one of those things. The principle of life itself, the very tenacity with which people have thrived, the consciousness of man over time. In the Sahara, you find artworks carved on rocks dating back 10,000 years of life in the Sahara in a different age. when vegetation was aplenty, when you had grass, you had lakes, you had
cattle.
I mean, you have the fossils of whales inside the Sahara, and it just struck me that for the first time we have the knowledge, we have the wealth to actually turn the Sahara into livable space. But it's something you have to do you can do only when you know exactly what you are doing. I'm sure that I did not mention Mr. Tony Akosho. As the work was going on, he's the only geologist with whom I could relate. So I was asking him questions, and he was guiding me. And I wouldn't have written an entire section of almost 200 quatrains without his help, because I now discovered that there is no such thing as the Sahara without the wind. Sahara is basically two things: wind, and what's the second thing? Sun. And sun. And of course, I discovered that a lot of poets and writers had lied about the Sahara. They say the Sahara is silent. Almost every poet, including Derek Walcott, they will say the Sahara is silent. It's not true. Sahara is one of the most musical places you can be. So let me read briefly from the opening section. First breath. Yes, I've been accused of using too many words that will take you back to the dictionary.
Yes.
But you see, the Sahara is like that. It's a very specific geography, very specific geology, very specific human ways of life. And that is how they manage to sustain life there for. And I think it would be unfair to just import your own vocabulary into that place. No, we have to be humble enough to learn their own vocabulary, and then we can go on. Yes. This is a section written in Senegal. The fishwife in a wooden market stall tucks in a franc into a black brassiere, smiles as she hands over the fish. She's tall, her teeth glisten whiter than the Sasia neighbors, whiter than any woman's, so white I wondered if God knew she'd make it into a magnet for custom and light. I did not ask her name. I wouldn't pit my halting French against that effortless river of Bambara market French. I forget what the fish tasted like, but not the fever of curiosity, flaring as it did from a nugget of ivory that blinded my wandering eyes. That woman was Senegal, Senghor's woman, immortal in her blackness, market-wise, bringing back ties of the musings of a man on a land made for poetry, the perfect tone of every phrase. In all of this, the desert was ever present, its idiolects suffusing the streets with a certain ease found in the Sahel. Elegant, understated, borderland dexterity, animist bon vivant, measured out in bright speech that elated with the germinal wisdom of the sun. The decorous chameleon of my continent rouses to incantation from gas flares, and a millennium of sand turns pertinent in the sea-bound spill of harried hectares. There is no stealth to the spreading wound let loose upon yesterday's savannah, no genteel grace to the usurped ground, famished for clues to a lost nirvana. Our chameleon loses limbs, loses pigments, save for one dull range, and we, transfixed, watch spellbound the rampant installments of a dragon's diet. Flowers and blood are mixed, but these are not enough to halt the hunger rising from the belly of the earth, and nothing will suffice to appease the anger of this land except raw, green mirth. Every robe of this desert is native, and every robe is new. The ancient skin of the vast wastes takes captive every color under the sun, and nothing of the night is alien. The jewelry of the desert dance is a trove of stars, silent banners, deep dye cavalry of black storms, whispering love, kindling stifled fires with dry provision. radical notions, sentient ambitions from the late Pleistocene, fearless in the face of extinction, surviving to tell the truths that conquer fate. This austere birthplace of the boomerang rings louder than any bell. It is eminent as death, killing clean both commoners and kings. Quarry and hawk dance now, with one breath, inexorably mapping the spaces of survival. Their dance is keen, it's a form of ancient poetry. They are unrehearsed, adept revival of animal chess. It is Orient, it is Occident. It is the walls of hemispheres. It dwelled to the death before mankind invented that condition. Theirs is nothing cruel. It's pure nature, need, not the merely wanted. Their arboreal evasions, their spear economy. This is the music in their aerial mood. Their angles, their terse, implicit taxonomy, their inductive pie. Somewhere close, doves feeding in the delta among papyrus and flax, evading crocodiles enact a different code, also musical. Tema, animal friendship, pax, soft as the small of every ear, tender as old. I think I'll stop there for now so that you can ask your questions.
Okay. So it's become clear to me now why there's so much reference to the sun and to the wind in this book. The books, you can get copies for 1,500 naira. I think...
Autograph.
Okay, yes. There's going to be a book signing after I have an autographed version.
There's actually something that amazes me about Tade, and part of what has inspired us for the WriteHouse Notable series is that we want to see a change in literary space in such a way that people who have influenced young minds, people who have a body of work and have influenced young minds, have influenced young institutions, have stayed on in this rugged road of literature. Not only celebrated, but are given space. Most of the time in this new generation, we have a gulf of new writers who don't have ample relationship with the second and third generation writers, and because of that, we have people say they feel like throwing our works through the window and all that. So there's a need for some kind of synergy between people who have grown in their art and people who have not, who are just starting out. So the WriteHouse Notable series is not only here to celebrate writers who have influenced people, but writers who are ready to bring the young people together. And Tade has shown it. Tade wrote a book edited by a younger writer, criticized by younger writers. He will send mails to even younger writers to say, "Hey boys, what do you feel about this work?" And that's the kind of legend we want to see, not people who hide in their enclaves, who create some kind of demigod character.
Oh God, it all. But you see, there's a question I want to put to Tade from a younger writer to an older writer. It's in two parts. It's about stamina.
Okay.
What is the secret to staying power in this country, practicing art? That's one. And then what's the secret to sustaining one poem for this long? I think the two will be related somehow. I don't know for sure. But what is, Nigeria is like my friend here just said, in this rugged, I knew he was speaking from experience. And you've been here for over 40 years now, practicing.
Yeah.
And then
writing.
That itself is beginning to manifest in this stamina that you have. Please, how does one develop in life and in literature?
That's a very involved question. But I think the person to actually answer that will be Odia, because he has been here longer than all of us, and he has fought many battles. Some of them desperate and deadly, especially during the military years. You know, I was not always on the side of the people. For the first how many years of my professional life, I was actually in the Ministry of Justice as a civil servant, and it was in the very dying throes of the military when Abacha was there, and you could see things going on that you couldn't defend in any way. There was an occasion in which the military administrator of Oyo State made an arbitrary law that nobody could enter the Oyo State Secretariat, the seat of government, as from 8 o'clock.
Nwosu.
Yes, Nwosu. And it affected everyone, including the workers. It came to a head one day when this old man who was a gardener, he had to attend to some other things and he was coming late. And because of that law, because there was this huge soldier in front, he had to take
the fence,
a detour, and he climbed over the fence and he miscalculated. He was harpooned by the crotch. He actually bled to death. And the family brought an action against the state, and it fell upon me and my colleagues to try to defend the state. Now, there's no way you come out of that kind of experience and not feel that you needed to explain your society. And that's just one incident out of several. I mean, you went to work every day. You had about 40 files of all kinds of cases in front of you. And these are the true reflections of your society. I mean, one lifetime really is not enough to go through all those stories. I wish I could write short stories. I wish I could write a novel. And maybe one day, like Pasternak, I will actually do so. But it's very easy for me to say that I just felt impelled to write about all the things I've seen leading up to a certain age at which I now decided, okay, I'm going to...
So are you saying that you took all of the obstacles and you made them into the propelling force?
Okay, so I can sleep at night. I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me break out a piece from my original question. I have found out that it's really very difficult to get poetry published. And then I know also anywhere in the world. And then it's even more difficult to get anything published in this part of the world. So how did you get your work published?
Oh, well, I said my publisher is here. I think he...
No, we want to hear it from your perspective.
He has a lot to say to this afternoon. The first thing is that if you are really serious about writing poetry, if you are serious about writing any genre at all, you are going to have to overcome some obstacles. The first thing I tell young aspiring writers is don't be bothered about whether you're paid or not. Publish your work first inside newspapers, and if you can find them, journals, and then if you can find one through a proper publisher. I think I've been lucky with this book in that my publisher believed in the project. I think I was halfway through it when my own computer gave out, and my publisher looked at what I'd done.
That's one of the pointers of the rugged road.
To that point, and he said, no, you have to finish this book. Take this computer. And you know what? At the end of writing this book, that other computer too.
Also gave out.
Also gave out.
It must be the poetry. Yes, the poetry is that conk. It's killed 2 computers, you say?
Yes.
Wow.
And through the Sahara. There's a lot of dust and all those things. So
Sun and wind.
yes. Well, here's the thing though. A lot of young writers think that they can do writing in comfort. Some people have managed to do so in other parts of the world where there are fellowships, residency programs,
Yeah, and grants.
and grants.
Yeah.
In this part of the world, you will not have all those things. But if you are really determined to write,
For this form of poetry that you wrote in, I don't think many people would even attempt it, or whether they don't let us know when they've tried. It seems that a lot of people who try to write this kind of poems, they fail at it. Well, of course, it seems that the prestige that is attached. So what was it? Which one was more? Was it the anxiety of failure, or was it the ambition of being one of the most prestigious? What made you take on this one? Because I've read your other books of poetry. They are not like this one. They are different in every way. So what made you take this on?
What makes you take on anything? On the way here, my publisher and I were having a discussion. Do you know Nigeria has these professors in these universities who just like being called professors? When you ask, what is it that they have actually contributed to knowledge, you can't find it. And that is really is a shame. And I'm not talking about the arts alone. Professors of engineering, professors of science. We are people that are taken by big names and titles and or whatnot. I think I really wanted to prove a point.
Okay. To
That,
who?
to myself.
Oh, okay. First?
That it can be done.
Okay.
I wanted to challenge myself. So I paced myself.
Okay.
I told myself that I was going to do this in 5 years.
Mm.
Well, thank God for good friends. The first person two of my friends, Chumao Okolo and Akin, yes, the Ghost of Sunday, and Akin Adeshokon. They said, if you plan to write this thing in 5 years, you will never write this book. Tell yourself you are going to do it in 2 years, and then you will write it. I didn't understand it at first.
Okay.
But I discovered that because I told myself I'm going to write this thing in 5 years, sometimes a whole month will go by and I will not write anything. I'll just be thinking about it. But the moment I told myself I want to finish this thing in 2 years, I saw that I was writing at least a quarter in a day. Sometimes 4. And little by little, it became 1001. So
did you get to a point where the quatrains started writing themselves?
yes, it did. The first 600 quatrains were the hardest to write. But after that, because I chose my rhyme schemes from the beginning,
Okay.
it was easy. It was like you just hit the timer and you started coasting along. And then of course the images coalesced faster. There was a day I wrote almost 50 quatrains. But in the beginning, there were days in which I would write one a week. And I developed new habits also.
Okay.
I started to take evening walks on my road at Ibadan. Yes. I started to take evening walks. And I discovered that a lot of ideas occur to you that will not occur to you if you are in your house or in a car. meeting people, seeing their faces, interacting with them.
Already I'm seeing people in the audience
Yeah.
wanting to jump in. So if you have questions, please.
Wondering why you shouldn't read us more.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Mr. Akilshaw has a question.
Yeah,
Comment?
after I read, I wanted to find out after I read.
Would you rather read or read the question?
Let me read